Hello, network. Connections available, so I'm here. Anyways, you guys, I've been working on this message for a while, and hope that you're going to get a lot from it. It's, you know, what happens when your life has a Goliath in it, and you may not have like the historical Goliath that we've all read in the Bible, but you're going to have Goliaths, because that's called living. That's life. That's what happens. And you know what happens when your life is faced with them, and how do you handle it? So I don't know about you guys, but a while ago, it was about a year and a half ago, I had somebody who created a lot of chaos in my life, started a lot of rumors, lies, horrible lies, and then went on to create these waves of impacts that took just months and months and months and months, and overnight my life changed. And I know that I can look back now, and when we are in the middle of facing those Goliaths, or we have those Goliaths or those giants that are coming at us, you know this is not something that you want to go through. This is not something you saw coming. How do you go through it? Now, I have a video diary that I had made behind the scenes of the 200 days that I was going through this, because it was a really, really intimate journey, and it affected every area of my life. And I'm going to start sharing some of those videos here in the next couple months, and hopefully that will help you guys to know that when you see the Goliaths coming, you guys, that should excite you, because it's the Goliaths that are going to help you level up. All right, you don't get to greatness, we don't hear about great people, we don't have great things happen without Goliaths happening in our lives that require us to come up and step up our game, and maybe be a little bit more than what we're currently being. Those incidences that contain Goliaths, they change you. They can change you, and this is the part you have the control of. They can change you for the better, or they can change you for the worse. That's your choice. So when you know a Goliath is coming, you know how you handle those situations from the very beginning. Are you going to get lost? Are you going to wallow? Are you going to get stuck? Because there's a lot of people who will just quit as soon as they see it. They're not going to embrace the opportunity. When you think about when David was called, this little boy was called to go fight this giant that had just killed so many soldiers that were much bigger and braver than him. When he was called, he stood up. He stood up and took that opportunity, because he had everything that he needed in place beforehand to trust what he could lean on. So when you have these Goliath moments that come, be thankful for them. There was a lot, I know, in my own story. I had a person accuse me of doing something that I didn't do, and I had thought at the moment that it was so absurd and so far from the truth that nobody would believe it, and that was wrong. It just kept getting bigger and bigger. But when I found myself lost in the middle of this challenge, what I did is I went to the stories that would inspire me. When you think about Joseph and Joseph in the coat of many colors, and you look, his brothers sold him off. When you think about Jesus, all he was trying to do was love everyone, and here we are trying to crucify him. And there were a lot of stories that I leaned into during my trials that helped get me through them. We don't necessarily know how long they're going to be, how long they're going to last. I know in my story, when it started, I had hopefully thought, wrongly, that it would go away as quick as it started. So I went to the Bible, and I remember reading the story of Jonah in the belly of the whale. And I remember thinking, instead of the Bible being this two-dimensional book that I had always read before, I was now experiencing it in a three-dimensional walk, because I was walking through what the characters in the Bible were walking through. For instance, Jonah, when he was in the belly of the whale, he didn't know it was going to be 3 days when he was on day 1 or day 2. And when I was going through my experience, I didn't know how long it was going to last either. I was wishful thinking from the beginning. So that's why I went and kind of clung on to the Jonah story. And I thought, it was a completely different way to experience these stories of greatness that I had heard and read, and not just in the Bible, stories of Nelson Mandela and stuff. These were all stories that I got to, instead of being the two-dimensional reading, I got to walk these stories with these people and realize that, when Jonah was in the belly of the whale, think about if you were in the belly of the whale. Everything that you would feel and every fear that you would have and every doubt that you would ever have, he had also. And so when I was on day 3 and he was on day 3 and then I woke up and I was on day 4, Jonah, I moved on. Jonah was a wimp because he was only on day 3. I was on day 4 and I kept going on. And I went on and I really clung to Noah. And that was a really interesting, beautiful story to cling to, because for the very first time, as I was going through and I kept thinking my journey would be over soon. And I just knew it would be. And I'm sure that Noah felt the same thing, and mine wasn't. And on day 13 and day 27, those are really hard days for me. And that's when I realized that those had to be really hard days for Noah also. And that when we read these stories of all these people that go through these trials, they didn't know how long they were going to last. They didn't know if it was going to be over in a day, if it's going to be over in 6 days, if it was going to be over in 6 years. And most of the time, these really big stories of the Goliaths, they last a very, very, very long time. And it's not easy to get through it. These are the tough days that will give you a completely different experience when you're hearing it and you hear somebody else is going through something that lasts 40 days and 40 nights. When we're reading that today and we know that Noah was on a boat for 40 days and 40 nights, it's really easy to just move through that. But living through the 40 days and 40 nights is a completely different experience. So knowing from my beginning that I knew from my beginning that it was all false, even though the world didn't know, and that I had to just trust that God's going to be in charge and drive this, that I don't really have a whole lot of control on what's happening and the ripples, other than I'm going to control how it benefits me. If I'm going to let it turn me sour, if I'm going to slow down and look around and see, what change is needed, if it's going to grow me. I know that myself, when I was going through it, that's when I learned that there's a whole avenue of domestic violence victims who have abusers who know how to manipulate the court systems to completely abandon them and not help them at all at a time when they need the most help. And going through it, I was very lucky because I had the option of having money, and money creates options. And a lot of women who are caught in the same situation don't have money. And that's why I've gone on to help Jane Goes and create the Secret Foundation. And we'll do much, much, much more, because I realized going through it myself, there was a need. There was something that was missing there. And that's why I was trusted to go through this process. That heroes aren't an unattainable status. It's just normal people choosing to stand up for what they believe in and leaning on what they trust in. There's no telling how long it's going to take. You can't give up. And it's hard. It's really hard. But you can choose what you're throwing out there. So keep planting seeds. What you throw into the world will come back to you. So I knew if I kept showing up, and I'm going to be polite, I'm not going to allow the people that are creating all of this mockery to pull me down to their level. I'm going to stay where I'm at. I'm going to stay high-minded. I'm going to be really careful what I surround myself with, because it was a time that I wasn't strong, but I'm not going to give up, and I'm not going to let it change me. I'm going to let it make me stronger, and to keep putting good stuff in my soil. It's kind of like, and I've used this analogy before, when you go to the gym and you're working out with the 5-pound weights, and you go and you're kind of sore at first, but after a couple weeks, you don't go looking at the 5-pound weights. You just kind of move on, and you appreciate the 5-pound weight for what it was, because it made you stronger. But now you're going to move on. You're going to go grab the 10-pound weights and work those out, and you're going to keep moving on. So the next time life is challenging you, don't let it make you bitter. You got to kind of separate yourself from the experience of what's going on, especially when what's going on wasn't something you deserved. You didn't see it coming. I mean, David and Goliath, David did not want Goliath to be there, but he was called to step up to the plate, and he did. You're going to walk away from the naysayers. Be very protective. Don't spend any time with the naysayers. Don't let them pull you down. You're going to have to ignore a lot of gossip, no matter how loud the gossip is. When you know who you are and where you're based out of, that does not change. You're going to fill your life with positive, love-feeding, changing things. This time when you're going through it, when you don't know how long it is, and when it goes on for a long time. My own story went on for 200 days. And during the 200 days, the person that had started all of this was viciously attacking me behind the scenes, was creating chaos, I was fearful for my life and my safety, and all of that was exactly what he wanted to do, and it kept dragging on, and nobody was stopping him, and I just had to keep leaning on. Now, I wasn't being irresponsible. I was locking doors and making sure everybody knew where I was at, but I was trusting that this is going to make me stronger, and that I was going to humble myself by not throwing out trash. I wasn't going to go on the gossip spree. I wasn't going to let it make me bitter. I wasn't going to let it change me, because that person isn't strong enough to change me. A neat story I heard is, if you're in the middle of something right now that just is really wearing you out and it's going on for a long time. I don't know if you guys know it, but the bamboo plant is a plant that when you plant it, it takes 3 years before you ever see proof of the bamboo plant. Okay, but in that 3 years, at any given time, if you give up or if you didn't water it, the bamboo plant's going to die. But if you just keep showing up and you're going to put good soil out there, you're going to water it, you're going to give it good stuff. In that 3 years, what it's doing is it's growing deep roots at that time. It's creating really good infrastructure. So when you're going through your challenges, and the world may not know the story, you may not be able to see proof of the bamboo plant or proof of what you're going through, you can work on your infrastructure. You can work on your mindset. You can make sure that what you're doing is surrounding yourself, and you're going to use this opportunity in a way that's going to grow you and make a better version of you. Because great people are not just born. Great people are grown. And they really grow pretty great during that infrastructure play. That infrastructure where nobody knows what's going on. For 3 years, a bamboo plant, you have to water it, and then all of a sudden it will shoot up 4 feet every single day. Your life will be the same way if you use those times that are challenging you, especially the ones that take a long time, 3 years, and not give up. And no, I'm going to feed my mindset good stuff. I'm going to keep showing up the way I intend on showing up, and I'm not going to let anybody else's impact change how I'm going to impact the world. You're going to add love to the world. And during this time, pay attention to where change and help is needed. Because after you have that infrastructure in place, and when the growth starts, that's when you're going to go and be the change that the world needs. These are the moments that greatness happens. We all have them. We all have the opportunity to be them. It's a matter of what you're doing during that time where nobody knows what's going on. Are you doing the work of quitting and wallowing, or are you going to do that infrastructure and grow deep roots and grow stuff that you can count on so that you can be the change? And then always, for me, I'm going to give glory to God. I do not know how people get through situations without having some kind of faith in something bigger than them. Because if you go through all of these moments, and we look at what happened with David and Goliath and what he went on to become, we get tested with these smaller moments before. God won't give you more than you can handle. It just doesn't happen. So if you're in the middle of something that you think is too big for you, you've got this. You wouldn't be trusted with it if you couldn't handle it. You've been tested before, and if it's really big, you've got this. And it's going to grow you, and it's going to give you much, much, much favors, and you're going to be able to look back later and connect some of the dots. I know I can't personally tell you who God is to you. That makes no sense to me when somebody tries to do that, because it would be like me trying to tell you who your friend is or your best friend is. All I can do is I can live my life in a way that might inspire you to start looking at things a little different and to seek a deeper connection with God that will help you when you find yourself looking in the face of giants. Because I know in the middle of my journey, if I didn't have that connection and that faith and that ability to, from the very beginning, when I was in a parking lot, getting ready to go turn myself into jail, I knew I'm going to turn this over to God. I had a pretty good conversation with him because I didn't want to do any of this. And that's when he said to me, you know, Char, you now know what Jesus prayed in that garden before he went and got crucified, don't you? And I did. And I kept going back to that book. I don't go to the Bible to judge the world. I go to the Bible to help me get through my days and help judge what I need to do next. That's what it's for. It's your guidebook. And so if you don't know what it is, I didn't grow up in a house where we had this ritual of going to church or that we sat around and pray. I didn't have any of that. What I know is that I have a God that found me, and I believe in a way that he is longing to find you. And you can call it whatever you want to call it. I call it God, but I know that I couldn't have gotten through it without it. And I can tell you guys, there are some really, really big, great, amazing things coming, because during the time that I had downtime and I connected with my God, I created some infrastructure, and you guys are going to see some great things. I have a book coming out. I was so blessed to be able to share how I do a team approach differently. I have a book coming out. It's a national book coming out. I got a whole chapter in this book on the one agent team that's going to be able to show how we can grow our industry and a different way of structuring teams that all come from contribution, and it helps everyone involved, and it's free, and I got to be a chapter in this book. That's called Agent Mastermind. You guys will see more of that coming. I've got some great things coming with the domestic violence advocacy, and seeing the stories and the women whose lives that I get to help with personally, and to see the ripples that they're going on to create. None of this would have been possible had I not had a Goliath come into my life and had that moment. This was a year and a half ago, that completely could have devastated every area of my life, or it could have completely made me a badass, which is kind of what it did, is what I'm looking at it. So I want you to know that I hope my story, and I'm going to be sharing a little bit more of that as I go through it. I kind of kept it very personal, but I'll share more of all the events that had happened, because what I now know is that, especially with domestic violence, it happens to just so many people, and domestic violence has been a part of my existence from my beginning. When I was a child, I was in and out of foster care, and kind of escaping that, and then getting into adult relationships where it wasn't necessarily always a physical domestic violence relationship. There's a lot of different forms of that, and it is the one thing that's curable within one generation if we would just kind of talk about it, create the infrastructure. And I've got some great ideas on how we can make change happen too, because I walked the path and I paid attention. So you guys know what, if you're going through something, you have Goliaths come. It's not a matter of if you have Goliaths coming, because they're coming. It's life. We're always going to have them. Sometimes they're little ones, sometimes they're big ones, but when they come, you need to know that you're ready for them. And I hope that when they do, that you will find that your infrastructure of being able to lean into your faith, I don't know, reach out to me if you need some inspiring words, because it's funny how things come through me at the right time when somebody needs to hear them, and I'll be happy to share some of my story, because being able to look at situations a little bit different and making a deeper connection is what it's all about, because I believe that we are all powerful. From the moment you were made, you are freaking awesome. because you are the only one who's you, and the world needs you to figure this out. So whatever echoes are going around in your head, maybe from people who told you you weren't awesome, stop listening to them. Just listen to me a little bit more, because you're freaking awesome, okay? And we need you to claim your greatness, because we're also all connected. And with us all being connected, if you claim your power, we're going to make a really, really wonderful, beautiful world. And we're going to be able to just help each other and make change happen that needs to be happening. Because right now, we're in a culture where we just want to kind of disassociate. Knock that off. It's a lot better when you have people around you. So you guys know why? We're all powerful. We're all connected. I hope something in this message connected with you. And I hope that you're feeling loved. Now go around and go love somebody else. And I hope you're having a great day. Talk to you next time. Bye.